Welcome to Homeschooling Autism by yours truly, Penny Rogers from Our Crazy Adventures in AutismLand.com. There are many benefits to homeschooling your child with autism. I'm just going to touch on a couple of them here. You can follow his interests. So if your child happens to be interested in dinosaurs, like Logan was at an early age, you can use that interest to sort of tailor his education to that, which will keep him interested in it so that he will learn more. Relationship building. Logan and I have a really great relationship together. We've been homeschooling together for over 12 years. So building a relationship with your child with autism will help you in so many other ways, and we're going to touch on that. He gets to learn at his own pace. Some of our children, well, all of our children with autism have a different developmental level than they do chronological age, and going back to their developmental level and helping them learn at their own pace is a huge benefit to homeschooling your child with autism. Therapies work better and are easier to coordinate. When you don't have a school calendar to have to sort of work around, you can do therapy at the therapy center at 10 a.m. if you need to, no matter the age of your child. So they work better because your child's more relaxed, and of course they're easier to coordinate because you can work your homeschooling schedule around therapies if necessary. Let's talk first about if there's a window of opportunity, so to speak. Lots of people believe that after a certain age that, your child can't learn as much, or children in general can't learn as much or as fast as other children. So you may be wondering if your child is older, if it's too late to teach your child new things, which of course I firmly believe the answer to that is no. If you are working at your child's developmental level for each subject, then you will make progress. There's still lots of time. So we certainly seem to think that if we haven't done this by a specific time, that our child's never going to do it. I had heard that when Logan was much younger and he was nonverbal at 5 years old, that if he did not speak by the time he was 5, he was probably never going to speak, which turned out to be not true. He spoke pretty close to his 6th birthday. He said his first word, and he was not conversational with me until after some pretty intensive therapy, and that was around age 10. It took us many years to get to where I could ask him a question and he would answer back. So if I had listened to the experts, then I would have never kept working with him because the window of opportunity was gone. So it's certainly there. In my opinion, there is no window of opportunity there. Even slow progress is still progress. Our job as homeschool parents is to teach our children how to find the answer and how to love learning. And if you've done that, then you can consider yourself good. Neuroplasticity reminds us that learning can happen at any age, at any time, in anyone. That's why adults are able to go back to college when they're 50. You can still learn. It might be harder to learn, and it might take your child longer to learn something that a typical child picked up rather quickly, but your child can still learn. So I have a friend who has a almost 30-year-old child that she is still homeschooling, and that particular person is she's still learning. It's so fun to see what she's learning, but work at their developmental level for every subject, no matter what, and their developmental levels for each subject is going to be different. They may be great in math, so they may be off the charts and be in high school doing high school math in elementary, and then writing, which is a whole different set of skills, they may be terrible at, so they may still be in kindergarten writing. It doesn't matter where they're at, it just matters that you know where they're at so that you can work at that level. Now, you have to celebrate their successes, no matter how small. Even the teeniest, tiniest success needs to be celebrated. So if your high schooler finally just learns their multiplication tables, then you celebrate that. If your child can now write his name because he can hold the pencil without his hand getting fatigued, then you celebrate that. The point of this is that if you learn to celebrate all of the success, I can't talk there, all of their success anytime, no matter what it is, then you will learn to see their success, and you won't get sort of depressed about them being in high school and they're still doing like 5th grade math. So the point of this slide is that there is no window of opportunity. You just take your child where your child's at, and you just keep teaching along at his pace, at his level, and he will make progress. Now, it's not any coincidence that this slide follows the window of opportunity slide, because we've talked about there's no window of opportunity, so your child can learn as long as you take it at his pace and at his level. But sometimes academics need to not be your main focus, and that's okay. Sometimes therapy needs are more important than academics. If your child can't sit still in his or her chair, then you need to deal with that before you can deal with academics. With Logan, he was not, we pulled him out 2nd grade, so he was a 2nd grader. His little sister is 5 years younger, so she was about 2 years old, 18 months to 2 years old at that time, and that was his developmental level. So we completely put academics on the back burner, and just sort of interacted with him at the same level that she was, because they were a pair. It was sort of like having twins, except one was much bigger. So by filling in those developmental gaps and not pushing academics on him at the same time, even though he was 2nd grade, he made lots of developmental gains. We personally took 2 years off of academics, 2 complete school years before he had made enough developmental leaps to even be able to handle academics. And even then we had to work on sensory needs as we did academics. As his sister became old enough for kindergarten is when he sort of kind of wanted to do school too, because she wanted to. So by taking that time off, it helped everybody relax, and it helped me learn what Logan needed to learn, and it helped Logan learn that that I would always have his best interest at heart, and that he could trust me. I would push him a little far out of his comfort zone, but not so far that he would melt down. So we had to sort of build that trust relationship. RDI, relationship development intervention, calls that the master apprentice role. He had to learn that I had something important to teach him, and I had to learn how to teach him. So we sort of did that little dance for 2 years and learned that before we actually did academics. Working on sensory needs to make learning easier for your child is perfectly acceptable. If you need to take some time to learn how to, the same child that couldn't sit, we just learned that he needed to sit on an exercise ball so he could bounce, or he needed a TheraBand across the bottom of his chair so that he could flick his feet back and forth. So sometimes you just need to take some time to learn what works for their sensory needs, and that's perfectly okay. There's always time for academics, but if you can't figure out how to make your child with autism learn the best, then you're going to be butting your head against the wall. Both of you are, and there'll be lots of tears from you and your child. So if your child's been to public school and you're taking them out, you need to take some time to do what we call de-school. What it is your child with autism has spent, when they're at school, they spend every ounce of energy just to keep it together for school, which is why when they come home, they normally melt down. So you need to take some time, because they have negative episodic memories of school. So if you try to give them schoolwork, they're going to think of school and that they feel incompetent, so they're not going to want to do it. By taking some time off to play games and take field trips and just sort of chill out and work on that master apprentice role, you're going to have your child relax and start to make positive memories, which will make them want to try school more. So taking some time to work on pressing therapeutic needs always makes your homeschooling easier. If there's something that your child is doing or needs help with, or you just need to stop and work on that and put homeschooling on the back burner, it's okay, because by working on that and figuring that out, you will make your homeschool work all that much better in the long run. So sometimes it's hard to see the big picture, which is that your child is in second grade and you're like, I can't stop academics because they're in second grade and they're already behind. But if you put blinders on to the chronological age and where your child should be, and just work at their level and take them where they are, you will make huge gains. And sometimes your child will make huge leaps from one age to another. Logan, when he finally got to the developmental age of age 5, he was almost 10 at that point. So I was really feeling the whole, we're coming up on middle school and all that. We haven't even figured out elementary. But he made a huge developmental leap from age 5 to age 8. So by filling in all those earlier gaps, remember when I told you that we took 2 years off? By taking that time off and filling in all of those gaps with him, he was able to make that leap from age 5 to age 8, because we had all those gaps in place and everything sort of clicked. So try to think big picture, that what you're doing now is you're laying the foundation for academics to work in the long run, and there's always time to make up academics. So yes, Logan did graduate on time. He learned everything he needed to learn in the time he had left, but because we took the time to lay that solid foundation of master apprentice, making him feel competent, filling in the developmental gaps, he was able to learn faster and easier than if we had just kept pressing him on because we didn't want him to fall further behind. So you've heard me talk a couple times about developmental level as opposed to chronological age, and there's a couple different ways to find their developmental level. It's important to know it because that's where your child's at. So that's what you need to be expecting. When Logan was 5 and his little sister was born, I couldn't expect 5-year-old things out of him. But when he was 7 and she was 2, and he was developmentally 2, I expected the same things out of him that I expected out of her. So you discipline according to their developmental age, not their chronological age. You teach according to their developmental age in that particular subject. Everything you do for your child is geared toward that developmental age. You pretty much just forget their actual age. You just, it's there, but it's really not important, because it's more important to know their developmental age so that you can work from there. So a great way to do that is what are the ages of other children they tend to gravitate to when they're out in public? When you go to the park or to the museum or any of those other fun social skills that I talk about in my other session, what are the ages of the children that they tend to go toward? When Logan was 7 and he was about 2, he would sort of gravitate toward the toddlers. Even now as a teenager, he doesn't gravitate toward the older teenagers, even though he is one of them. He gravitates over to the young teens because he can sort of hang with them. He knows what to expect from them. They're on the same level. So just take them out in public a couple times, make it successful, and just kind of keep your eyes peeled for the kids they tend to go toward. What types of toys or TV shows do they like to watch? If your child is 10 and he's still watching Blue's Clues, then that tells you right there that he's still sort of a preschooler, almost kindergartner. So that's a great indication of his developmental age, and that's where you should take him. But if they're 13 and watching some of those young Disney shows or Nickelodeon shows, not Nick Jr. or Disney Jr., but the very next level, then that can kind of tell you what their age is. Just get down and play with them. If you just let them lead and you play with them, then you're going to sort of figure it out pretty quickly if you have any sort of experience with children, what kind of age they're at. So just, get on their level, get on the floor, do whatever, and play, just play with unstructured play. Just get down there and follow their lead. Ask someone familiar with them. If your child happens to be in preschool or in school, you can sort of ask the teacher, what are some things that my child, is my child immature? That's a great way to ask it. They're most likely going to say yes, and then you can kind of say, hey, what age do you think they are then? And they'll give you some feedback. A church is a great place to ask this. When they're in their church classes, you can be like, hey, is my child immature? What age do you think they are? I don't do this often because most of the time the people familiar with Logan are people that work with us, so I see the same things they do. Sometimes they'll come to me and be like, hey, I think Logan is at a different level for this than we have him at, and we'll kind of go from there. But usually it's me telling them what level he's at. There are developmental checklists. You can Google them. Just go get a checklist and sort of check off what your child can do. It can be depressing. Let me just tell you that right from the beginning. When you first try to find your child's developmental level, it can be depressing, especially if it's a large gap. But our job here is to find their level so that we can help them in the best way possible. So take some time to sort of find their level, to do their developmental checklist, but also take some time to breathe and to sort of accept the level that your child is at, and then by doing that, it's easier for you to get to work and help your child. All right, so let's be honest. We've already found their developmental level. We know there's no window of opportunity, but there are some things that typical kids are going to be able to do that our kids with special needs or with autism aren't going to be able to do. The motor planning and the fine motor skills needed for, say, writing is always going to be hard for your child. It's just the way their brain's wired. So rather than beating our heads against the wall and trying to make them write, let's just use some adaptive technology in our homeschool and make them successful. So for instance, we'll go with writing. You want to be their scribe. They can tell you their story. They have the cognitive development needed for the writing process. It's just the motor planning and the fine motor skills can't sort of connect in order to get it down on paper. So let your child orally tell you their writing assignment, or let them orally tell you their answer and you write it down. Whiteboards are great for this because if they tell you a story or if they do a writing assignment, you could just write it on the whiteboard for them and then they can see it. So because our kids are very visual, they think in pictures. Teaching them to type is a great thing. Spending some time teaching them to type. There are many free typing things out there. Dance Mat Typing by BBC is a great one. Or use speech to text technology. So if you get a speech to text app or Dragon Speak, if you pay for that, then that's a great way. That will free you up because you won't have to be there to be their scribe, but it will also help make them successful so that they can get on with their work. Use a communication device or teach your child sign language. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with your child using some sort of PECS system to show you what they want, or some sort of tablet device that they can sort of point at it, or teach your child different signs so that they can tell you. You just want to encourage them and you want to enable them to be successful. So how you do that is irrelevant. You just need to the fact that they're older and they're using a communication device has nothing to do with anything. It just is you making them successful. So just like in public school, they would need to use some sort of adaptive technology to make the child successful in writing. That's what we're doing here. So we're just that's all it is. For math, we use Abacus just because it's easier for Logan. He thinks in pictures, so he can count it out. He did it all the way through high school. It's okay. Copy the work on different colored paper. Lots of times, especially with dyslexia, if you have comorbid conditions like dyslexia or auditory processing delay or anything like that, copying their work on different colored papers helps them to see it differently. It helps their brain to process it differently. So something simple as putting their math paper on red paper instead of on white will help them to get through the math, or putting it on green, just have different colored paper there and sort of do trial and error to find one that works for your child. It's the same concept as the Erlen lenses, where their brain can't process or processes different colors better. So by using those colors to your advantage, you're helping your child to learn and process it. Large pencils, crayons, whatever your child likes to write with. Logan in particular hates the sound of pencils on paper. It's a sensory thing for him. He can't stand the sound of the pencil writing on the paper. So we don't use pencils because it doesn't work for him. We use non-smearing ink because both of my children for some reason are left-handed. So by getting non-smearing ink, he can use a pen, which he prefers when he does write, and because he's left-handed, it doesn't smear all over his hand, which he does not like. So lower your expectations sort of sounds cheesy here, but it's really important. Just like with the developmental age, we want our children to do what other children their age are doing. So by lowering our expectation and realizing that your child, if he's developmentally behind, or 5 and he's 10, he's not going to write like a 10-year-old. He's going to write like a 5-year-old. So lower your expectation down to their developmental level, and by staying at that level, I know I've harped on it for 6 slides now, but that's how important it is. Stay at that level and move at their pace, because even small successes, even slow progress is still progress. We celebrate all successes, even small ones. Forgetting about grade levels goes along with the developmental approach I've been taking throughout this whole presentation. Just completely get it out of your head. Forget what grade they are. Even my typical child often couldn't tell you, she still can't, what grade she is unless she thinks of what class she's in at church, because that's the only time we talk grade level. So you can certainly get any sort of textbook, any kind of curriculum, any of those that don't have grade levels on them. Write Shop, which is my favorite writing curriculum for any child, but especially with children with special needs, they have their curriculum set up so it goes from book A to book F in the elementary levels. So there's no actual grade assigned to it. So no matter what level your child is doing, he just knows he's on book A or he's on book D or whatever. So so lots of curriculum like Write Shop will do that. They won't put, if it bugs your child, just find curriculum that doesn't have a grade level on it. So every subject's going to be at a different level too. So he could be in book A, which is the very first book of Write Shop, but he could be doing 6th grade math, or we could still be learning how to read, but if I read aloud to him and be his scribe, he can still do grade level science. So you sort of have to find out every subject. You have to look at every subject you're going to teach, and you're going to find their level for that subject. So the chances of you being able to buy an out-of-the-box curriculum like Sunlight or Bookshark or anything like that are slim to none. You're going to have to go ahead and piecemeal your curriculum together. That's not to say that you can't get several different packages and make it work. Sunlight could still work for you if you picked their developmental level and sort of adapted it to what they need. Bookshark and Sunlight are the same thing. One's Christian and one's secular. But making sure you know that when you buy I would never buy from either of those their complete curriculum that gives you the math for the grade level, the language arts for the grade level, and the history books for the grade level. I would buy just the history portion and know of whatever we wanted to work on, like the history of science. I would buy just the history of science portion and we would do that. But I would find out their math level, and we would work at that pace. So I most likely, in our homeschool, here's what it looked like. We had the history level from Sunlight or Bookshark. We had math from Mr. D or teaching textbooks because he was on a different level. We would do language arts from Right Shop, and we would do science from Apologia. And I would just pick whatever level he was at. So the history of science from Bookshark is high school level. But in Right Shop, he might be doing level C, which is about the 2nd to 3rd grade level. In Mr. D's math, he would be doing algebra because that's his level. And then in Apologia, science, we would be doing, one of their elementary series. So if he's doing algebra, you could do anatomy, or you could do their animal one, but he would be in the elementary level for science. So the point here is that you are going to pick every subject. You're going to look at every subject, and then you're going to pick their developmental level for that subject, and then you're going to buy it based on that level. So most likely you're going to have to pick from different people. You're not going to be able to just buy it out of the box. So you just need to focus on your child and where your child's at, and teach to mastery. And once your child has it, you just move on. And if it takes you a year and a half to learn multiplication tables, then it takes you a year and a half to learn multiplication tables. If you learn the multiplication tables and then 2 months later your child forgets the multiplication tables, because that happens more often than not, then you just go back and you review the multiplication tables, and then you move on. So a grade level is great if you have a whole group of kids. It's not great if you're just working at your child's pace, because even slow progress is still progress. This slide right here about self-care is just as important as all the other slides, okay? It doesn't matter if you're a mom who's homeschooling autism, if you're a dad who's homeschooling autism, if you're grandma who's homeschooling autism. Whoever is homeschooling the child with autism needs to take time for themselves. It's okay to admit that your child with autism is a ton of work, day in and day out, 24/7, 365, okay? Just autism in itself makes your child a ton of work. It's okay there's nothing wrong with admitting that. You help your child by taking care of yourself. I learned the hard way that by trying to be a martyr and doing everything and, never taking time away from Logan because he needed so much help, didn't help Logan at all, because I ended up burning out and getting sick and being in the hospital, which was far worse for Logan than if I had just taken an afternoon to take a nap when I needed to, or if I had just called it a day or whatever when we needed to stop. So it's not selfish for you to say, I'm done for the day. My brain hurts. I got nothing left. We just need to call it a mental health day and go and put your child in front of the TV or his electronic and let him sort of, chill out while you go out into the living room and read a book. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with admitting that you can't do it all. So I encourage you in your planner, because we all have planners, it's probably full of therapy appointments and all that other good stuff for your child, that in the midst of all those therapy appointments, you also schedule regular time for yourself. One way I used to do this is that when Logan went to therapy, I would walk over to Starbucks and get a coffee and bring a book once a week, and not go into the therapy session and learn what they were doing so I could do it at home. He went to therapy 5 days a week for speech, for OT, for PT, for all of it. So he was there a lot. So 1 day a week, I would just leave him there with his therapist, and I would just walk over and get coffee and sit down and breathe for a few minutes through a therapy session, and then I would go back and I'd be ready to go. So that didn't make me selfish, that made me smart, because I need to put my own oxygen mask on first. There's a reason why they tell you that on the airplane. You can't help someone if you're gasping for breath, and you will be gasping for breath, because homeschooling means that there's no break for you. There's no one for you to send your child to all day, every day. So if you don't take the time to schedule a break in there, you will never get a break. And if you never get a break, you will burn out, and homeschooling autism will not work for you or your child. So I harp on this a lot, because self-care is crucial, especially if self-care is crucial for parents who have a child with autism. Self-care when you're homeschooling autism is non-negotiable. You have to schedule it in. And if you have to find someone who will insist you take a break when they see you looking all haggard and you haven't had a shower in 3 days and you don't even know what you had for breakfast, then so be it. I have several of those people in my life. My husband is one of them. I have friends outside the house who, if they see me at Publix and I look like I'm about to, blow a gasket, they will come up to me and say, "When's the last time you took time off? When was the last time you went to Publix all by yourself?" Or, "Go sit in your car, give me your list, and go sit in your car, and I'll finish shopping with your children and check out and bring it out to you." So you have to put those people in your life that will tell you, "Listen, you're not doing anybody any good by being a martyr. You need to go take a break." So it doesn't have to be a long break. It can be you sitting in your closet eating a candy bar where no one's touching you. Or we went to church many years ago simply because I needed some place. Even if he only stayed in the nursery for 5 minutes, I needed that 5 minutes where I wasn't hearing mom, 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 mom. All y'all are laughing because you know what I'm talking about. So take time to fit little pockets of self-care into your day, your week, your month, whatever works for you. But make sure, it doesn't matter what you're doing, just make sure you're doing it so that you can help your child the best way. All right, we're almost done. Last thing you need to learn about homeschooling autism is know when to call it a day. It's funny that this goes after the self-care slide, because you do need to learn when to call it a homeschool day. You just need to learn when, no matter what you do, you're done for the day, because some days are just harder than others. Some days you're going to get through history and science and writing and everything's coming up daisies. And then some days your child's going to cry during math, or you're going to cry during science because your child forgot everything they learned the next day. Okay, it's okay. Some days are harder than others. Call it a day, pick it up the next day, okay? Relationship trumps academics every single time. If your child is crying or you are crying, which happens, then you just need to stop, because your relationship with your child trumps anything they're going to learn in your homeschool every single time. This has nothing to do with my child with autism, but his typical sister, Madison, was having a really hard time with math. And so one day I posted on Facebook, "Oh my goodness, it is 3 hours later and this girl is still finishing this one. She's still sitting at the table with this one math sheet that I know she can do. It's a review sheet. I know she can do it." And my dear friend immediately texted me and said, "Put the math sheet away and let her go. Your relationship with Madison is far more important than that review sheet. And she's just not getting it today. She's not feeling it. You're not feeling it. Something's not clicking. Just take the math away and try it again later." So always remember that the number one goal of your homeschool is to foster a great relationship with your child. So if academics is making the relationship go bad, then you need to reevaluate your academics. If frustration is happening regularly in your homeschool, then something's not working. You need to, this is where you stop academics and you reevaluate your homeschool. It's always more important to figure out why your homeschool is not working than to keep plugging along so that your child can get back up to grade level. Because I guarantee you that if there's frustration happening regularly in your homeschool, your child's not learning anything. So you might as well stop and change it. Don't be afraid to change the schedule if it's not working. If math before lunch makes your child scream and run around the table, then do math after lunch when his belly is full and he's sort of more relaxed. If you need to stop in the middle of math to run outside and jump on the trampoline, then so be it. You are in charge of your homeschool, and your homeschool doesn't have to look like public school. My homeschool doesn't have to look like my friend's homeschool. It probably doesn't look like anybody else's homeschool, okay? Because we don't even start homeschool until Dad goes to work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there you go. I guarantee you there's probably no one else that's not even starting their lessons till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And our homeschool revolves around Madison's ballet lessons or therapy appointments. So it's your homeschool. Make it your homeschool. Don't be married to one curriculum if it's not working. Last year, I think we went through 4 math curriculums before I finally found one that worked. He wasn't getting teaching textbooks. He wasn't getting Life of Fred. He wasn't getting, they just weren't working for him. Saxon made him throw the book. So I just had to keep going until I found one that worked for him. Now, all of those are good curriculums. I don't know that I would use Saxon with my child with autism because it's very worksheet based, and that's not usually the way children with autism learn. You should be looking for something very visual, like or Life of Fred, or teaching textbooks, or some sort of online when they're very young. You can use ABC Mouse and things like that to Time for Learning to teach them math, because it's very visual. But the point is, if it's not working, then don't keep doing it just because you've bought it and you think you have to get through the year. If it's not working, it's not working. Shut it down, sell it off in one of those homeschool buy-sell groups, and buy the next one so that you can see if it works. Always remember, I've said this probably 50 times in this session, slow progress is still progress. As long as we're progressing, even if it's at a snail's pace, we are still progressing, and that's all we need to find. Thanks for joining me in my session, Homeschooling Autism. I hope it was helpful for you and that you learned stuff. You can find me on my blog, ourcrazyadventuresinautismland.com. As you can see, I'm on Facebook. I have a group, Life in Autism Land. I'm on Twitter. If you follow us on Instagram, you can see what our homeschool looks like on a day-to-day basis. More important though on this slide is if you have a question that you need answered, or if you just need some advice or someone to throw ideas off of, please email me at penny@ourcrazyadventuresinautismland.com. I love to hear from people. I love to answer questions and help people. I do have an ebook on my site, on my blog, Homeschooling Autism, that has all of this session and more in it that you can purchase. So that's just a little plug for my ebook. But even if you don't buy my ebook, if you just have like math's not working for you and you need some more math ideas, then please email me and I'll shoot out some ideas I have, or if just something autism related that you need help with, I'm happy to help. I really am. So please email me at that email address. And thanks for joining me today.